Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Horror Mine. My name is Vic Shy, and this is The Scare Score, where I break down horror movies and rate them on how scary I think they are. In this episode, I'll be going over the 2018 Netflix Philippine horror film, Eerie. The film tells the story of a counselor at a Catholic school investigating the mysterious deaths of several students. As usual, I'll be going over the events that take place throughout the film, while our scare score goes up or down based on how effective the scares are or attempt to be. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Raid Shadow Legends is an exciting free-to-play turn-based MMORPG available on all mobile devices. Raid offers nearly 700 unique champions with truly awesome designs to choose from. The game has just added a brand new faction called the Sylvan Watchers, nature-bound creatures that have made their home in the Mistwood, a huge jungle in the east of Teleria. This faction offers some truly unique and awesome-looking champions such as Green Warden Ruark, Dude in the Runic, and my favorite, Elva Autumnborn. And to kick off the new year, there is a brand new update with a bunch of new features, including a new season of the Forge Pass, the Plarium Points program where you can earn in-game goodies including a legendary champion and more. And in preparation for Raid's 4th anniversary event later this year, this month sees the launch of the humongous 4th anniversary Titan event. This type of event lasts for several weeks and will see you earning anniversary points by competing in special themed events. There are some truly amazing rewards up for grabs for taking part in this marathon event, so don't miss out. Raid has also released a legendary champion based off of MMA and pro wrestling star Ronda Rousey. Ronda's champion is available right now for new and longtime players just by logging in. Just log in and play Raid for 7 days between now and February 20th to obtain her champion. And if you're brand new to Raid, click my link in the description down below or scan my QR code here on screen and get unique bonuses worth $35. We're talking the free epic champion Jotun, 100,000 silver, 50 gems, and 2 epic skill tomes. You could find all this treasure waiting for you here in the inbox. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Eerie is the very first horror movie from the Philippines that I'm covering on the channel, and it is long overdue. But how scary is it? Sit back and relax and join me as we explore Eerie and tally up the scare score. Our movie begins with a, dare I say, eerie shot of a statue of Saint Lucia of Syracuse. We see several schoolgirls exercising in a courtyard being supervised by a couple of nuns. The background music is chilling, and this intro does a great job in establishing the somber tone for the rest of the film. We get a narration from one of the schoolgirls talking about a ghost story from inside the Santa Lucia Academy for Girls. Every night at midnight, at the end of the 3rd floor corridor is a comfort room that no one dare enter. The last cubicle is where a girl named Erika hung herself. One night, several girls are gathered around a candle in their sleeping quarters. The head nun named Soraliche walks in and scolds them for still being awake. A girl named Anna wakes up needing to pee and tries waking up her friends to go with her. The girls decide that their beauty sleep is more important than their friend's life and let her go alone. You'll never guess which restroom she goes into. She goes into the forbidden bathroom, and the only available stall is, you guessed it, the last cubicle. She conducts her business, then proceeds to take forever and a day to wash her hands. Her desire for perfect hygiene and cleanliness leads to this. Although very cliched, this scene was still pretty creepy, and the kill managed to catch me off guard. We meet our main character, school counselor Patricia Consolacion, portrayed by Bea Alonso. Pat and other staff members get their photos taken, and she hangs hers in the office. She speaks to a girl named Joyce who feels guilty about her friend's recent death. The shots of Pat and Joyce with their eyes hidden mirror the statue of Saint Lucia in front of the school. In a brief scene reminiscent of Katie's death from The Ring, we get a terrifying shot of Anna, who appears to have died horrified.
Nakita ba siya?
Joyce has had thoughts of ending her own life and has even resorted to self-harm. She feels trapped inside of the school, and speaking to Pat is her only source of comfort. That night, Pat listens to a radio broadcast discussing the death sentence that was made legal in 1993, 2 years prior. She sees a silhouette in front of her door that, while turns out to be nothing, still manages to be unnerving. The man is the school's caretaker named Mr. Fidel. We see a file on her desk with the name Erika Psycho, the girl who supposedly haunts the comfort room. She drops one of her pens and sees the feet of someone sitting directly across her. She has a conversation with Erika's ghost, whom she refers to as Eddie, which is possibly a nod to the film's title. The conversation between the two is unsettling, and Erika is as creepy as it gets. We learn that she was responsible for Anna's death and that all the girls are scared of her. She says that she is unable to move on, possibly due to taking her own life. She says that her father is in the dark corner staring at them and disappears. Pat walks out into the hall and sees Erika standing there menacingly. She follows her into the last stall of the comfort room and finds her crying with her back turned. A clump of hair appears in her hand, and Erika turns around looking a lot creepier. She wakes up from the dream and recorded the conversation on a tape recorder that only captured her voice. This entire sequence was very well done and intriguing. Nothing too intense happens, but the tension is definitely there. This scene sets up an interesting dynamic between Pat and Erika. The two have spoken on 6 occasions, but Erika has never revealed why she took her own life. One night, a student named Clara is walking the halls alone and feels an unknown presence behind her. She turns around with a look of terror, but we don't know what she sees. She is tragically found dead the next day. Caretaker Mr. Fidel is the prime suspect and has been arrested for the murder. The detective assigned to the case named Julian comes to speak with Pat. His silhouette behind the door resembles Mr. Fidel's from the other night. That night, Erika's spirit appears in the corner of Pat's office while she sleeps. This actually caught me off guard as I was typing the script for this video. She follows Erika outside, who continues to be the embodiment of my childhood fears. In a flashback, Erika reveals that her father strangled her mother to death. She grabs Pat by the arm before disappearing. This moment was similar to their first interaction in that nothing too intense actually happens, yet the atmosphere was filled with tension. The scares here are displayed beautifully, and the film's use of sound really complements the scare factor. Santa Lucia establishes a new set of rules for the safety of the students. Students must walk around using the Battle Buddy system, and everyone, including staff, must be off the campus by 6 p.m. Pat listens to a conversation between her and Clara, where Clara promises to be there for her when she needs help. One evening, she notices a nun staring at her from across the building. The nun creepily walks away, then begins running for some reason. Gotta get those steps in when you can. Pat follows her into the comfort room, where she sees something very disturbing. The last cubicle door opens on its own, and a nun suddenly appears behind her. She then witnesses Soraliche hanging Erika by a rope. She quickly disappears and reappears right behind her for a basic jump scare that belongs in the American Nun film. Pat wakes up from the nightmare drenched in sweat and is now suspicious of Soraliche. Aside from the basic jump scare that ended it, this scare scene was pretty well made, and Soraliche hanging Erika by the rope was very disturbing. Clara's murder has become a high-profile case in the country, and Mr. Fidel has been placed on death row. Pat believes he may be innocent and that the nuns are hiding something. She returns to the school at night despite the new order being put in place. She once again sees Erika, who seems to be somewhat obsessed with Pat. She hears crying coming from upstairs, and we see one of my new favorite things in a horror film: furniture covered in white sheets. She sees Clara crying on the ground with her back turned and reaches out to her, leading to one heck of a jump scare. The lights go out, and Pat is forced to light a match as the music and the atmosphere intensify. She finds Clara crying underneath the table with her skin completely gray except for the blood flowing from her eyes. The matches keep going out, and Clara, who seems afraid of something, disappears. She reappears using a jump scare to warn Pat that someone is coming and vanishes once again. On her way out, Pat is confronted by Soraliche, who doesn't seem to like her snooping around. Their interaction is observed by Erika, who never fails to creep me out. Their scare scene was executed perfectly. The atmosphere, combined with the sound and disturbing visuals, made for a scene that actually made me hold my breath a couple times. The next morning, Pat discovers Joyce in the comfort room with her wrist sliced open. Thankfully, she was not successful and is taken to the hospital to recover. Pat reveals that her brother took his own life in a similar fashion years ago. This incident is possibly what prompted her to become a counselor so that she could help people in need and save them. Pat recounting her brother's death is absolutely tragic. There is no music or noise aside from her own voice, which is very effective. Back at home, Pat is going through her nighttime routine and suddenly sees blood all over her face. Her wrists briefly appear to be sliced open, but it's just her mind playing tricks on her. The next day, a pair of twins are in her office drawing something on separate sheets of paper. She brings the two pieces of paper together and we get one of the more creative jump scares I've seen in a long time. This scare was one of a few things that genuinely surprised me the first time around, which was refreshing to see. She heads downstairs and interferes with Soraliche, who was about to discipline a student. Soraliche suspends Pat and says that Joyce wouldn't have tried to take her own life if she was doing her job. Pat is told by another nun that Soraliche once had a student who took her own life but doesn't know her name. She sneaks into her office disguised as a nun and learns that the student was Erika. She looks through an old film roll and sees a disturbing picture of Erika. That night, Pat has a terrifying nightmare filled with disturbing imagery. It's absolutely horrifying and I love it. Soraliche wakes up possibly having had an equally disturbing dream, if not the exact same one. Pat arrives at her door and confronts her about Erika's cycle. Soraliche reveals that she too was a guidance counselor at the school during the time Erika was a student. She says that the way of God was the only way she knew how to guide students, but that was not good enough for Erika. She admits that she doesn't believe God has the answers to everything and possibly feels responsible for Erika's death. She reveals that the night Clara died, she saw Erika's evil spirit overlooking the crime scene with a sinister smile. Julian arrives at Pat's home and shows her something odd. The confession of Erika's father from strangling her mother and Mr. Fidel's confession are almost identical. He drives her back to the school, but Pat says she must go in alone. She sees Erika's spirit and follows her into the church. Pat gets into the confession booth where Erika is crying on the other side. Pat wants to know the whole story of what happened to her. Erika creepily asks her if Pat wants to stay with her forever, to which she says yes.
Susundan mo ko hanggang impyerno.
Erika's tone of voice and demeanor instantly changes into something sinister. She brings up Pat's brother, who also took his own life and must be in hell for it. This is where we learn what really drove Erika to her death. We see that Erika was a beautiful yet odd young girl who apparently had an appetite for butterflies. She had a crush on another student at the school named Elise, which was strictly forbidden. The other girls teased her for it, and her secret was eventually uncovered by the nuns. She was severely punished at the school and at home for this discovery. Her mother even cut her hair to purposely make her look ugly as a result. Erika became even more of an outcast and nobody was on her side. She took her own life and vowed that she would not be the only one to suffer, becoming a vengeful spirit in the process. She reveals that she possessed her father and made him kill her mother. She did the exact same thing to Mr. Fidel, which is why their confessions are nearly identical to one another. She says that she killed Clara so that they could be friends, but that Clara feared her even in death. She says that she now wants to kill Pat so that they can be friends forever. This explains her apparent obsession with Pat throughout the film. Erika proceeds to possess Julian to use him to kill Pat. We get a pretty basic horror movie chase scene that includes the staple of the main character tripping and looking behind them. Julian chases her to the rooftop and begins choking her like Erika's previous victims. Clara's ghost suddenly appears and, just like she said she would in the recording, helps Pat by spearing Erika off the rooftop. This releases Erika's hold on Julian and Pat breaks down in tears. She records her final experience with the spirits and says that she now has nobody to talk to as no one would believe her. She tries replaying the audio, which sounds oddly distorted. She notices that her portrait is missing from its frame in her office. She heads downstairs to see all the employees and students extremely sad. She seemingly locks eyes with Soraliche, who seems to be in shock. As she walks into the church, she sees her own picture and discovers that she is now dead. She grabs her own throat and realizes that she died when Julian choked her on the rooftop. This is why her last recording sounded distorted and why Soraliche appeared shocked to see her. Her death was subtly foreshadowed early in the film. Both Mr. Fidel and Julian appeared as dark silhouettes behind Pat's office door. Both of them were later possessed and made to kill by Erika. Joyce runs out of the church in tears and Pat goes after her. Having lost the only person she cares about, Joyce climbs onto the rooftop and contemplates jumping off. In a tragic scene, she calls out to Pat in tears, asking her to stop her if she can hear her. In the film's final scene, Pat manages to grab a hold of Joyce and saves her. Pat embraces Joyce and tells her that she's right here, but we see that in reality, Joyce is sitting alone on the rooftop as the movie ends.
Nandito lang ako, Joyce.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Eerie. My friends, this was one of the most refreshing horror movies I've seen in a long time. The film had a certain ambience throughout that just kept me hooked the entire time. Everything from the acting to the music, cinematography, and scares worked very well as an overall package that left me very satisfied. The film had several genuine scares and managed to maintain an extremely creepy atmosphere throughout, earning Eerie a good scare score of 72%. The scariest scene in the film was a real toss-up for me. It was down to two scenes: the jump scare where Erika appears between the twins and when Pat comes across Clara's crying ghost. Both were bone-chilling for separate reasons, but I'm going to award this one to the latter. Pat's interaction with Clara's crying ghost was very well made and extremely intense. Clara herself looked genuinely creepy and my heart rate went through the roof every time the matches went out. But as always, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all for tuning in and I cannot wait to see y'all right back here in the Horror Mine. Y'all stick around.